Alright, I'm gonna get this exhaust manifold back on the Corolla XRS here. So before I get any further, putting this manifold back on, that one center bolt that gave me a problem trying to get it out, it was super tight. I'm gonna tap it. I tried to put a clean bolt in and it doesn't want to go, so I got this tap and I'm gonna tap the hole to clear up the threads, make sure we don't have any issues. It's a M10 by 1.25. Alright, so I got it set there and got it hand started a little bit as best as I could, and just keep it nice and straight. It's going in with very minimal resistance, so we should be alright. Just get these threads cleared out. Alright, if I can get this thing to focus. There's the tap. So you can see there was some shit going on in there. This is the old bolt on the right. You can see there's some metal buildup there. That was the one that came out of there. That came out tight compared to a clean one. And instead of trying to track down a head bolt or paying $10 for one manifold to head bolt, I just went to Lowe's and got a new one, M10 by 1.25. It's a little bit longer, so I'm just gonna use some washers and add to it until it's the appropriate length. Alright, those were the surfaces to the head. I gotta review this clip. I want to see how clean they are, see if I really need to clean them off or whatever before I put on the manifold gasket. Same with the manifold. You should really clean this up, but this doesn't look too bad from me working on it. Nice clean, dirt, grease-free surface for the gasket. Use acetone or brake parts cleaner or something like that on a rag for this and the head. Alright, you're kind of just doing it blindly here. You got to go down there and feel around for these ports and just fucking wipe around, do what you can. And I keep checking it with my camera to see how it looks. So that looks better. I'm gonna say that's good enough. Okay, the gasket only goes one way. It goes in like this because that center hole there is offset. So if you have it the other way around, it'll be too far to the left and it won't line up with your bolts. So it's pretty easy to figure out. That's how it goes in like that. So I got my manifold dropped back in there. I gotta work the gasket in place and get the bolts started through it. Alright, just a few tips for you real quick. Put the gasket on first. It slides over the two bolts that stick out from the head that take the nut on each end, so you can go ahead and stick the gasket on there. And then to get this manifold lined up with those posts also, you have to get that air injection pipe there under that freaking bolt first. I was getting caught up on that for a while until I figured that out. I got to push it around and under, then the manifold will line right up. So I got my gasket on, manifold on, so now I just need to start all the bolts. And you might have to push your downpipe there out of the way if you still have it attached like I do. Okay, that's what I did with my replacement bolt, so they're the same length going into the head. The only issue I may have is the head on this is bigger. I think that's what, I don't know, I don't remember what size that is, but I might have a clearance issue with getting a socket around this while I'm trying to get it in there. So hopefully not. If I do, if I can't find a M10 by 1.25 without a smaller head at the store, which I'm not trying to run back to the store or anything, I might have to cut the edges of this head down to make it smaller like that so I can get a socket around it for clearance and get it in there, but I'm gonna see if I can get it in the way it is. Alright, they're 27 foot-pounds of torque. I have no choice but to use this swivel joint because I can't get this down in here, it's too long. So you want to go from the center bolt out. So you're going to do the center bolt first, then one to the left or the right, and then the ends. Okay. Alright, I finally got that bastard torqued on there. I actually ran into a problem. My threads gave out on that one I tapped. But, thankfully, that bolt being longer, remember, the threads actually go deeper into the head than the bolts are long, than the factory bolts. So I was able to take these washers off and utilize the longer length and actually grab some good thread deeper in the head and get it torqued down. This is not a good idea at all. My regular 3/8 drive torque wrench that I was using, I had to use a swivel joint to get it in here, like I said. But I noticed some of them I was pushing way harder to get torque, and some of them I was pushing way easier to get torque. And it's because depending on how this pivots, it affects your torque value. So bad idea. So I got my inch-pounds torque wrench and tried to calculate up to 27 foot-pounds and use this instead because it fits without needing the swivel joint. But I needed over 300 inch-pounds to achieve 27 foot-pounds, and this only goes up to 200. And I don't even know if you can get a 1/4 incher like this that goes that high. And I don't think you can get a fucking 3/8 torque wrench that is this small, but that's really what you need if you can find something like that. So what I did was I just maxed this out on 200 inch-pounds, which is, let's see, 10, 120, 240. It's just under, it's probably like around 18 foot-pounds. So I got it up to that, and then after that, because I couldn't get a torque wrench in there that will read 27 foot-pounds for me, whether you're calculating for it or not. After that, I just went and tightened each one a little more to approximately 27 foot-pounds by hand with a regular ratchet. So God, it's fucking windy. This is annoying. I don't even know if you can hear me. So that's torque down now. So now we just gotta work on putting all this shit back together. And this, by the way, this little thing we had to remove, this is a sort of a shock absorber, if you will. What this actually is that's how your tensioner pulley works. Instead of the pulley itself applying the tension, there's a bracket, an arm, a pivoting arm like this that runs up and bolts to this. So then you have an arm that runs down and the pulley's on the end of it, and there's a bolt in the middle that it pivots on. So basically this provides the tension for your tensioner pulley. So I'm gonna have to figure out, I'm probably gonna have to take the belt off or something to get it loose so it'll just flop around. That way I can line this back up because it expanded when I pried it off of there. But that's what this is. Meow meow. Kitty kitty. What are you doing? Why are you up there?
Answers you every time you talk to him.
Oh. Alright, so there's how you relieve the tension there on that tensioner arm so that you can get the belt slipped back over the alternator or whatever, wherever you popped it off, which of course that's where I would recommend it. This is a fucking nightmare. It's a 19 millimeter. Make sure you use a 6-point socket It's so hard to pull down. You're gonna need a big ass tube extension or something. And it's so tight it starts to round the head. Now my socket's stuck and I'm trying to get this shit out. To pivot that arm, this whole fucking thing here, to line up the bolts and the nut there, you gotta take the belt off so you can tip the arm enough to get it lined up with that. Then after that is when you gotta pry on this damn thing to tip it forward enough to hook the belt back over. Alright, I got all this dumb shit buttoned back up, tube back on. Make sure I spun those around to where I can get to them next time. Although this one should be a little further this way. Belts on. Got the air injection thing plugged back in, bolted back down. I got my new bolts in back there with my weld job that's real shitty, but I just needed it to hold the new nuts on long enough to tighten that down. Fucking cheap ass Harbor Freight $90 welder. Gotta throw the valve cover back on and coils, and then it should be good to go. Alright, I'm going to do the install video now, how to put your valve cover back on 2ZZ motor. This is the 06 Corolla XRS. Should be the same for 03 to 08 Matrix XRS, or whenever they stopped making the Matrix XRS, and the 05 to 06 Corolla XRS. If you're working on an older 2ZZ motor like in the Celica, should be fairly similar. Okay, so we got to prep the surface for the new gasket. This is still the old one I got to get off. So you're going to want to go around all the mating surfaces and clean this up. Get all this grease and shit off with a clean rag and some sort of acetone or like brake parts cleaner or starting fluid. And doesn't really require any RTV except for these 2 points right here. You can see these little buttons. And right there, I actually took this little piece off. It's from the factory. And you can see that one there still, that cream colored shit. They just put a little bit there from the factory because those will be your only potential leak points. So you got to clean this up, and then we'll have to put some RTV just on those points when we reinstall. I got to get this old gasket off and clean it up too. Okay, so clean rag, starting fluid, acetone, brake parts cleaner. Spray it on your rag. You don't want to get any of it in the motor because it will eat away seals and rubber pieces and shit. Then go around the perimeter, clean these surfaces up real good, nice and clean like that instead of like that. Your rag will start to get dirty and you'll have to either keep changing rags so you don't start smearing the same shit around, or just use different parts of it. So I'm gonna get this cleaned up. Alright, there's the old intake manifold gasket off. You might have to pry it off. It might come out in pieces. So you can see it's shiny there. It's got oil and stuff in it from the head, so same process as cleaning off the mating surfaces. I got to go through here with a rag, push it down in there. You can use a flathead screwdriver if you want with the rag to get through that channel, get it all cleaned out. Okay, there's with the new gasket on. You just got to kind of go around and push it in with your thumb, and then it won't quite line up. Come at it from the other side and it'll want to pop out on you, but just go around and shove it in the track. Flip it upside down. It shouldn't come out. Go ahead and replace this little metal gasket to the PCV tube if you want. I don't think it'll be a big deal. It's just freaking air going through there, so. Okay, I just applied a little bit of gray RTV there on those points that I mentioned. I unplugged these fuel injectors just to give myself a little more room. I'm gonna have to like hold this up and out of the way while I try to get this valve cover back on here, and I gotta try to worm it back through here and get these damn things through so I can get it set down and torqued. Alright, I got those fed through, and then before you go ahead and snap it down all the way, go around, make sure your gasket didn't come displaced anywhere. Make sure it's still installed correctly. Then I'll go ahead and line this up. What do we get? There. Where am I? Okay, so I got all these hands started. There, there, there. 3 on the back. 2 on the side here. And your one over here has that bracket for that. So I'm going to go ahead and spin them down by hand with a socket and extension, and then we're going to go torque them. Okay, then you're going to torque these to 7 foot-pounds. I'm going to use my inch-pounds wrench, or sorry, torque wrench, and adjust it to 7 foot-pounds, which would be 7 times 12, whatever the fuck that is. So, because I don't think my 3/8 torque wrench goes down to 7 foot-pounds, but anyways, 7 foot-pounds, and you're going to start from these center bolts and go out. And do these center ones in a crisscross pattern, like do this one, then do that one, then do this one, then do that one. And then the sides don't matter because there's only 1 over here and 2 over there. 7 foot-pounds, I'm going to do my crisscross pattern, 7 foot-pounds, and then I'm going to go over them again in the same pattern just to make sure. Alright, I got those all torqued down. Then you need to pop these tubes back on here. Well, I guess it would help if I point at it. Get these hose clamps slid back up and over. You gotta get nuts back on here. Shit. Tighten this thing back down. Reinstall your coils. Okay, it's easy to put this rail back on first. Just snug these down a little bit. Coils back in. Bolt these down. They're also 7 foot-pounds. Plug them back in. Put your plastic cover back on if you want, and then you should be good to go. You're going to want to, if your RTV says 24 hours to set up or whatever, give it time. And with your new gasket, you want to give it at least 1 good warm up and cool down heat cycle before you're hard on the motor, so you don't develop any oil leaks. That way the heat will let the gasket set. Okay, once you've double checked, triple checked everything, start it up. To start to see some smoke there from the new gasket and all the grease and shit from where you've been touching the manifold. You want to let it run and get completely warmed up and run it regular temperature for a few minutes. And the new gas is going to smoke and all that grease and shit you got on it, that's normal. You want a good heat cycle. You can drive it a little bit, drive it lightly up and down the road. Don't get on the throttle hard or rev it high. It's a real good idea to get it hot, let it run hot. It'll sit here and continue to smoke. Take it for a brief drive. By the time you come back, the smoke will either be gone or it'll be a lot less. That's just from the new gasket breaking in and shit and all the grease and stuff you got on it. So that is normal and it will eventually clear up.